all of you guys out here, distinguished invitees, our assembled delegates, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. And on behalf of ET Brand Equity and CleverTap, I extend my very warm welcome to all of you to the Big Leap Rise with Retention Roadshow, Mumbai chapter. As you have seen that, can we have a huge round of applause for the Big Leap Rise with Retention Roadshow? And now, as officially I got a chance to introduce myself. So I'm Navita Sachdev, your host for the evening. As Jeff Bezos has once said, that the most important thing is to obsessively focus on the customer, and it's our job every day to make every important aspect of the customer engagement and experience a little bit better. So ET Brand Equity and CleverTap joined forces to bring in the most comprehensive and biggest ever program in the customer retention domain, the Big Leap. As we have seen that, the program is widespread over the next 6 months and is going to host various, means exclusive roadshows, interviews, multiple city roadshows, I would say, digital dialogues, networking events, and informal meetups with India's digital pioneers. So today, at the Rise with Retention Roadshow, as presented by ET Brand Equity and powered by CleverTap, will deep dive into customers' journeys and how brands can create a customized solution to retain them. We're also glad to host our esteemed speakers who are going to share their Big Leap journey, or I would say the Big Leap story on customer retention strategy through hyper-personalization at scale. So as we all are living in the social media era, so our social media hashtag for today is hashtag the Big Leap and hashtag Retain to Gain. And you can all catch all our live updates on ET Brand Equity and CleverTap official handles. Now, to set the tone of today's evening, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Manish V. Dhanwani, who is the Associate Director, SVOD Marketing, MX Player, for a featured session on hyper-personalization at scale. I must tell you, Manish is a dynamic marketer. He's known for building strong retention experience across brands like Sony Live, also Book My Show, and now heading to the B2C business side things at MX Player. So may I request the honor of inviting Mr. Manish on stage for the wonderful presentation on hyper-personalization at scale. Hi, Manish. How are you, Manish?
Very good, thank you.
Stage is all yours.
Oh, thank you. Feels a little young to be here. Hi guys, good evening. Guys, let's keep the session a little participative in nature. It's not about, in our terms, it's not a GAN session. It's something that I have done over a decade of my tenure at across brands like Book My Show, Sony Live, and MX. So I am going to raise questions, and I would request the audience to be a little participative when it comes to answering them. The first question on the board, on the screen is, what is personalization? I'm asking you guys, what is personalization, please? Perfect. Anyone else? Okay, what is personalization? What is an experience in personalization that you witnessed in a .com or across any other brands that you normally use in your day-to-day life? Any experiences that cut through? Sorry, I heard something. Amazon, that's right. Sir? Perfect. So that is, while the agenda is hyper-personalization, I think there's a long way to travel for brands in India, largely OTT platforms, to even get to the level of hyper-personalization, because, and honestly, that is what the presentation will speak about. So, this is a small video, if you could just. This is what brands believe to be personalization, and this is what it is even in a .com world. When I say that this is what it is in a .com world, what is it that we call as personalization is largely addressing the user by first name. Dear Manish, or dear Namrata, or dear Sangeeta, how about a cup of coffee? I received a notification or I received an outreach program from Starbucks. Hey, we missed you. But why is it that Starbucks is missing me? I don't have a clue, right? Why is it that the other day, the largest ticketing company in India has sent out a message saying that you last transacted when there was a blockbuster movie, but apparently there's been no blockbusters after that, right? Given the current scenario where OTT is kind of taken over the cinema business, there's no reason for me to go ahead and transact on a brand like Book My Show, right? Now let me ask you another question, which is, what is hyper-personalization? I've heard a gentleman say, what is personalization? I've heard some voice from the audience which says that a brand like Amazon is getting into personalization or has connected with the individual on a personalized basis. But what is hyper-personalization? So now that we are aware of personalization, what is hyper-personalization? Perfect. Guys, I'll quickly take you all through another video on what is hyper-personalization. Okay, this question will come to you guys after I finish talking about a little bit more on hyper-personalization. As we just saw, the difference between the first video and the second video was, first video is just letting the customer know his first name and addressing him saying that we know you. And the second video really talks about following or getting into the skin of customer, asking them that, okay, we have a few data points about you and this is where we are going to add a delight and a wow factor in your lives. That is what we call hyper-personalization. How is it that you can communicate with the right consumer at the right time, with the right message, and also with the right data set? Just to give you an example of the way we used to do things at Sony Live is, we were very wowed that we were finally able to store the customer's first name via using login. It was only after a point in time we realized that, okay, that's not going to add any value to our lives just by knowing the first name. It just adds a delight to the consumer, and a lot of our customers don't even give the real first name. Anyone will type Tom, Dick, Harry, and HHH, AAA, and all that. So there's a lot of inappropriate data flowing into the system. How do you rectify that, and how do you make a 360 customer connect using data is what hyper-personalization is all about. Coming back to my next question, how many OTT platforms are there in India, and how many OTT platforms you guys just remember? That's right. Anyone else? Guys, just be a little more participative in terms of just what are the prominent OTT platforms on which you all consume content. Just name the brands loud. Thank you. Sorry? Oh, MX Player, thank you. I heard two people in the Audi saying MX Player, but just to give you all a gist, there are about 60 plus OTT platforms in India right now as we speak, and everyone is grabbing or is in a battle to grab the quest and the best way to grab the subscriber share, because we are no longer, we believe that we shouldn't be any longer driving the AVOD ecosystem. Some jargons here: AVOD is advertising video on demand, that is you consume content for free. And while we make money out of you guys watching and show you certain ads, and that's how we make money. And subscriber is purely you pay for the subscription services, which is SVOD, you purely pay for subscription services, and that's how you become a loyal and a more engaged user with the platform. In India, there's a mentality that it's very difficult to take monies out of a consumer's pocket. We are very penny wise customers. I won't say pound foolish, but yeah, we are very penny wise consumers, and we don't believe in the power of paying a consumer, paying for a particular service, right? In a consumer survey that we did, fortunately MX Player figured in that as an OTT platform. But yeah, these are the 8 brands that came across out of the 60 plus brands that are available for content consumption in India. So Sony Live, Netflix, Hotstar, Disney Prime. To be very honest, till the point in time I also spent a few years in the OTT ecosystem. I also didn't realize that there were 60 plus OTT, 40 plus and now 60 plus OTT brands in India. And these are brands, a lot of brands have gone regional. When I say regional is Hoi Choi. If you see, this is what, apart from Sun Next, there are no other brands that are featuring in this list who have gone regional. The reason why they are not featuring, because they don't have a top of the mind recall, and which is why there's a possible synergy for brands to associate and create a wow experience. Imagine you guys getting a Sun Next or a Hotstar or a Oi Hoi Choi kind of a subscription when you take an MX Player subscription, right? This is the point, or this is the inflection point in the OTT business where brands are going to combine together, they are going to create possible synergies, and that is how create a wow experience via hyper-personalization. Some numbers just to show off. 400 million users are actually consuming video content on their phone, out of which India has 50 million paid subscribers, and 100 million, and these 50 million roughly subscribers roughly own 2 subscriptions across all the OTT platforms, and which makes it a 100 million subscription universe in the Indian market. And just to give you all a brief industry-wide revenue distribution, we are a 10,700 CR industry, of which 6,900 CR comes in from advertising revenues, while the remainder comes in from a SVOD revenue. But if you see 6,900, ARPU is not even half of what an SVOD ARPU is. Gives us possible direction that this is where we need to head to. Subscription is going to be the next big thing. Obviously, there are strategies across price points, there are strategies across what content you want to offer. When Sony Live kind of decided that they wanted to change the game, these were the parameters that actually encouraged us, and a similar construct is going on right now at MX Player as we speak. OTT is a very confused ecosystem and has miles to go, right? When we talk about hyper-personalization, I don't think any other brand apart from Netflix is actually there. Netflix also is marginally there because it believes in creating more of a pull strategy. If we are sitting in the night and if we are wanting to watch a kind of content, we will straight switch on Netflix. I mean to say that's the majority of preferences of our night binge watching habit, right? But it doesn't really boil down to that, because a lot of other brands like Sony Live, a lot of other brands like MX Player, a lot of other brands like Amazon Prime Video and Hotstar are actually believing in a push strategy. The difference between a pull and a push is you organically go and visit that platform, whereas other brands are actually vying for your eyeballs' attention. What we are doing in the OTT ecosystem, we are only chasing KPIs. How many subscriptions have we activated? How many renewals are going to happen? Until and unless it doesn't boil down to a real business sense, we acquire a consumer and we let him let go. And just when we realize that, okay, the next month's renewals is going to hit, we start engaging aggressively with the consumer, and the brand and the consumer starts feeling disturbed that why is this brand over communicating with me? That is where data sets will now need to, data sets from an OTT ecosystem. How many of you guys have actually started to scroll on a Sony Live app and have started to collect data or have started to fill data that if you're a male, female, what is your birth, what is your birth date, what is your first name, what is your last name? I mean, how many guys have actually gone through that experience?
We have a problem with that. I watch it on TV.
Yeah.
How do I enter data there? If I go to ask for data, I can't.
Yeah.
On a phone, it's easy.
So on the TV, we are not asking for data. On the TV, once I've collected the data on the phone, we are any which ways requesting you to log in via the same credentials on the TV. And that is how we are mapping the data that this guy is largely a TV watcher as compared to a mobile watcher. But primary source of data collection is still going to be mobile first.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, at least you mentioned it right at the start. The generation that most of us are here, we are not going to watch it on TV.
Yeah, but
not watch it on phone. Preference is still TV.
how many of you guys watch MX Player on phone? And as compared to, okay, how many guys actually watch MX Player on the big screen? And the rest of you, I'm assuming, either don't have the app installed or watch it on your device. Oh, thank you. We'll take that as a positive feedback. But so largely we are a mobile consumption platform because of the category of content that we have. Actually, the content has become very well and it's becoming a family kind of a content. But it's the kind of perception that we build in the market, introducing some content which is only meant to be consumed on the handset. The gentleman here, right here, has put his hand up, like brought up, saying that he consumes MX Player on the mobile. It's not meant for family viewing. So when we are coming to address your question, it is more of a large TV ecosystem for a lot of players, but for us, it's still a mobile first game. It is largely dependent on a content strategy, and makes sense for us to go mobile first because after YouTube, we are the largest OTT, or we are India's largest OTT platform in terms of the MAUs and in terms of the DAUs that we generate. My earliest stint, the kind of scale I've been handling here, the DAU here is actually the MAU there. So DAU is daily active users and MAU is the monthly active users. There are 4 pillars which are associated if we want to ever create a hyper-personalization experience, which is content, discovery, user interface, and experience. All of this goes into making a hyper-personalized experience. And the next big thing for an OTT platform is to create a community. I have put down a question there, India versus West Indies, which begins tomorrow. How many of y'all can just throw your hands up and answer where is this series actually happening? Okay. Any other takers? Genuinely, were you all aware that this is happening on FanCode? What FanCode is rightly doing is that it's attempting to create a wow factor in the minds of a consumer by creating a community setup of only sports followers. The next big question to be asked there is why did they not enter into IPL? IPL is meant for entertainment and consumption of sports for people. It's Bollywood plus cricket, right? So it's a typical masala kind of an offering. But FanCode has started to acquire and has started to stream a lot of a lot of cricket content for its viewership, and it is trying to build that segregated database of communities. What are we doing about it? I don't know about the other OTT brands, but in our present setup, we are leveraging data. We are creating personas. We are optimizing the time. We are not only optimizing the message, but we are optimizing the time which is going to be suitable for the sender. It largely reflects our policy. Right message at the right time to the right consumer will help us drive hyper-personalization. We are also tapping into a discounting sentiment, and we are also creating communities that would respond appropriately. How is hyper-personalization going to be useful in business, right? It again, if you are a CLM guy or if you're a CLM guy driving for KPIs, it's obviously CTRs and open rates of the world is obviously the KPI that you're going to be looking at, but it largely boils down to acquisition, engage, and retain. What we have conveniently missed, or what OTT brands have conveniently missed, is the second part. Acquisition and engagement doesn't follow, and they get over aggressive when it comes to retention. With hyper-personalization, in a nutshell, what we are doing is that we are using data that we get in real time, and we are actually getting into the skin of the consumer, because entertainment, if you guys take a closer look, entertainment is the only form of entertainment where or is the only form of business amongst a little bit of other businesses, wherein the user is required to pay a year, a month, or 6 months, depending on the category of or depending on the appetite of the consumers. You have to pay in advance, right? The reason why we are shifting from an AVOD to an SVOD ecosystem, AVOD, the publisher rolls the RO, and we displays ads, we promise the committed reach impression, and after 3 months, we kind of get the monies in the bank. But SVOD is that platform, or SVOD is that avenue where the consumer, we are getting monies in advance. Think about it. Your local cable wala, he's going to tell you that I will activate the connection for 12 months if you pay me the money in advance. Your OTT platforms, we are asking you monies in advance. But when it comes to advertiser revenue, we are not asking monies in advance. So it helps us largely create a positive cash flow situation, and hence the EBITDA of the world, and hence the ROI positiveness with this.
Marketing is fast shifting away from one-size-fits-all strategy and moving closer to providing an individual experience for each customer. Today, customer wants brands to anticipate their needs. They want brands to communicate with them relevantly and in an extremely contextual manner across stages of the life cycle. So with that, join me in welcoming our esteemed panel who are going to unveil or uncover, I would say, what hyper-personalization means now and how will it going to evolve in future. So I would like to welcome Mr. Ashish Tiwari, Chief Marketing and Digital Officer, Future Generali Life Insurance. Please welcome on stage, sir. I must tell you, Ashish comes with over 16 years of corporate experience across consumer, telecom, and new media domains. In his previous stint, he led digital transformation initiatives for HMC, a Hero Motors company and Jubilant. Okay. He's not here right now. I believe he would be joining us in a moment. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Hemant Jain, Senior EVP and Head of Digital Business, Lokmat. I must tell you all, at Lokmat, Hemant is responsible for building the largest community of Marathi-speaking audiences across a diversified portfolio of digital products and platforms, content genres, and hyperlocal experiences, thereby creating an ecosystem for brands to connect with local communities in their local language. So can we have a humongous round of applause for all our dignitaries I am calling on stage. We are very delighted to welcome Mr. Gaurav Suri, who is the Head of Marketing and Products and Senior EVP, UTI Mutual Fund. Please welcome, sir, and take your respective chair. I would like to tell you, Gaurav provides leadership to the marketing and communication functions, along with the business intelligence unit, which serves to build data of decision-making in the firm and digital ecosystem for creating a digital business model for UTI. Along with him, we would like to welcome Mr. Nikki Sidwani, who is the Vice President, Technology Outlook. Please welcome Nikki, and please take your respective chair. Nikki has rich technology and business experience with Outlook, Pivot Roots, Loginext, and Accenture, to name a few. In the last 12 years, he has worked on multiple client projects and owned products across domains. Along with them, I would like to welcome with a huge round of applause, Mr. Tapan Acharya, SVP Meta in India, CleverTap. Tapan has been in the industry for over 2 decades now, working in various roles as a developer, as a consultant, product marketing, and CXO for organizations including IBM and Microsoft, to name a few. Along with them, we have with us our session chair, or we would call him our session moderator, man with a vision, senior journalist, Gautam Srinivasan. Please welcome Gautam here on stage. I would tell you that Gautam's expertise in editorial and branded content spans an 18 years of his journey with leading media conglomerates in Asia. He also anchors a variety of TV digital shows and events on enterprise technology, personal finance, education, health and economy for corporates and business media networks. Please welcome all of you. And I would say ki stage is all yours, Gautam.
Thank you so much, Namita. I'm feeling a bit older with that introduction. So I'll try to make the conversation young with possibilities, and I noticed that all of you know about churn rates. So the pressure is on me to make sure that all of you stay and listen to this conversation. But I'm hopeful that with all the insights that we get from our wonderful panel, that I will be able to hold your attention to what we are about to discuss, which is creating hyper-personalized experiences for the customer. So thank you so much for that, Namita. Thank you for the introduction.
I would say before I go that why people are calling themselves that I am a bit older, because you all are so young, you're timeless. So can we have a humongous round of applause for all the people out here on stage? Because we are moving forward to a wonderful discussion on customer engagement, I believe.
Thank you so much, Namita. I don't see Manish around anywhere, so he just stepped out. So we echo the same sentiment. And well, Manish said he loves sports, and let me just ask around, how many of you love sports, or follow sports? All right, most of you would be cricket. I know usually when we discuss analogies, cricket comes to mind. But I have another sport in mind, considering the theme of this series is the big leap, and that is the long jump. How many of you are familiar with the long jump as a sport? Wow, many of you, fantastic. Do you know what's the world record for a long jump? Anyone? All right. The world record for a long jump is 8.95 meters. And why do I mention this? And this is where, I don't know whether algorithms are at work, or I was just watching content and suddenly this documentary came about, and it's called The Impossible Jump. And it was analyzing why that 9-meter mark in the long jump has never been beaten. And that's where it struck me that, when we look at a sport, when we look at, say, track and field events, say running, there your objective is run fast, beat the other competitors, and you're done. But when you look at the long jump, there are actually 4 elements involved. First is the start, then is the run up, then is the 2 strides that you take, then there is the jump off point where you take off, and then there is a point that you land. 5 stages for success. And each stage requires impeccable timing and training. If you miss one of those stages, the jump is lost and you have to go back to the drawing board. So it's a story of agility, it's a story of strength, it's a story of fortitude, and which is what struck me, that there is a parallel to kind of attracting customers, which is relevant in the business world as well, because it's not a unidimensional journey, it's a multi-dimensional journey. And that's where I love the fact that I have the opportunity to speak with some of the best athletes in the business and kind of learn from their performance regimen. And more importantly, how many jumps did they do before they kind of perfected it and landed at the right spot to really connect with their customers. Because as we heard from Manish, it's not an easy experience, right? We can all talk about attraction measures, but the real game is in retention. How do you retain consumers to grow? So I am looking forward to what Hemant has to say from the Lokmat Group's perspective, media and entertainment, Gaurav Suri's view on UTI Mutual Fund. That's going to be an interesting take, considering it's a newly developed space when it comes to investment. So it'll be great to hear your side of the story, Gaurav. Nikki Sidwani joins us. Kootloot, it's a platform which I just encountered and I'm already fascinated. It's been 2 days. And of course, Tapan Acharya, you're our oracle for all things consumer retention. So looking forward to your thoughts. Last time you started with a quote from Socrates. So I'll see what you bring to the table this time. Now we have a limited duration, so I'm going to break that conversation into 2 segments. We're going to have a rapid fire round of Q&A, and then we'll kind of get down to the brass tacks, and we'll keep the audience engaged as we go along. So let's start with the rapid fire question. And Gaurav, we'll start with you. How would you describe the big leap that has taken place in terms of consumer preferences and habits, considering now it's the digital consumer of today? Your thoughts?
So quickly, I would say consumer being time-starved and information overload, they're looking for conscious, I would say 4 C's. Being a marketer, I have to put in some framework. Conscious experience, connections, because we are so lost in our own screens, context, and the last would be control, because somebody mentioned, issues around data.
All right.
And this in a context of maybe being responsive, boundaryless, and a trusted environment. So I said, what's true, which started 8-9 years ago, I want what I want, where I want, when I want.
All
Is
right.
even truer now.
We moved on from location to the 4 C's in the context of customer centricity and customer retention. Hemant, let me come to you. We see the big leap, bright and large on our screen. So taking that as a cue, what does taking a big leap to retain customers mean for you?
Since it's a rapid fire, I would just say it starts with knowing your customer. Take your baby step first.
Know your customer and build on that relationship. That's pretty much the basic of any human interaction, right? And the more you know, the more you enhance that relationship. All right. Now, the next aspect is the myths which are usually surrounding hyper-personalization, because as we heard from what Manish said, we still have a long way to go. So let's explore what are some of the myths or misassociations which come with hyper-personalization or the idea of hyper-personalization. Nikki, you want to take this up?
Sure. So I think one of the very important thing to understand when it comes to hyper-personalization is it is not about an individual user all the time. It is about identifying a group or a pattern which behaves. It is not about silos, it is more about a group which moves forward in a similar direction. Now, if I can, using a lot of technology in the background, using a lot of compute systems, if I can identify that this particular pattern or this particular cohort moves in a particular way, then it is easier to predict that a person following a similar pattern on my platform is more likely to take a particular action. And if I can actually give that using a push mechanism instead of somebody trying to search that on my platform, that is where, you know, the hyper-personalization would take us, right? It is about understanding how a group would behave and then predicting that this user belongs to a particular group and then making that correct decision of serving the correct content there.
All right. Taking that forward, Tapan, you know, it's about user segmentation. It's about understanding your consumer. But I want to understand from you, what is the biggest disconnect when it comes to consumer expectations and business delivery? What are your thoughts on that?
I want to first expand on the word disconnect. I'm assuming सबको हिंदी आती है. जेम्स बॉन्ड को एस्टॉन मार्टिन मिल जाती है, उसको अपनी वॉडका मिल जाती है, शेकन नॉट स्टर्ड, और हम बोलते हैं यार उसको क्या पर्सनलाइज्ड एक्सपीरियंस मिल रहा है. हमको पर्सनलाइज्ड एक्सपीरियंस मिलता है तो हम बोलते हैं कि यार हमको पर्सनलाइज्ड एक्सपीरियंस क्यों दे रहा है वो, क्यों हमको जेम्स बॉन्ड बनना अच्छा नहीं लगता. एंड फर्स्ट पॉइंट. सेकंड, दिस डिस्कशन इज अबाउट मार्टेक, इट इज नॉट एडटेक. आपका डेटा लेके किसी को बेच नहीं रहे. People who wear specs, like I wear specs, if you go for buying a spectacle, and I'm talking pre-lens card days, the guy knows you. Oh sir, आप sheet frame पहन रहे हैं, ये नया Italian acetate आया है. Why don't I recheck your number? They know your frequency of visits. They will in fact make you wear the specs. Your barber knows you very well that यार मूंछ के नीचे 4 बाल right hand side पे extra आते हैं, क्योंकि दोनों साइड्स पे बराबर नहीं होता है वो. But you don't feel offended about it. Now let's come to technology. Sorry, Gautam, it's a rapid fire, but I need to say it on the...
I'll keep my eyes on you and interrupt like they do in news debates. But go on.
But now let's look at technology, like Lokmat. If I'm not wrong, your MAU is monthly active users upwards of 15 million. That's 3 times Singapore. Singapore is 5 million population. And you want on technology to cater to personalized reading. वो क्या पढ़ता है? वो thriller पढ़ता है, वो emotional पढ़ता है, whatever is the genre. And you want to be relevant to that person. And you're not allowed to put boots on the ground. Now I want to ask you a question. Let's say, I'm just randomly asking, yeah, let's go for non-veg biryani. He's a vegetarian, I need to know this if he's my customer. And that is personalization. So it's about MarTech, first party data, secure party data. वो जो आप सर्विस में engage करें, वो जानना चाहता है कि आपको पसंद क्या आता है.
I've experienced the same with food platforms as well, where I've had you could say, a surprise in front of me. But, well, you learn from those experiences, hopefully, and when you move on to mitigating and resolving, and then hopefully the consumer feels, well, here is a brand which actually responds. And,
Response.
absolutely,
So
because,
that's-
somewhere the thinking is also that the size of the market is large. So what if I lose one customer, right?
Most of the people who are leading the market, they are not thinking like that. And you know, if you have a leaky bucket, आपकी बोट में इतना बड़ा छेद है कि आप 10 customers acquire कर रहे हैं और 8 चले जाते हैं. That is marketing money on bonfire. You are spending CAC to acquire a customer, say for example 2,000 rupees. वो customer आया, कोई transaction नहीं किया, वो देख के चला गया. Bonfire, ऐसे फेंक रहे हैं. Know your customer here. And then we'll talk about building the business. And it is first party data. It is your data. You are just using technology. In technology, like I personally believe, you're using technology to have a conversation. For example, if you're going on any e-commerce platform, if you're checking catalog, it's not about कि यार इसको ये बेचना है t-shirt. No, it is about you are having a conversation. I'm looking at collared t-shirts. I'm looking at delivery in Bangalore. I'm looking at sun colors, red, orange, yellow. That's a conversation the customer is happening through technology with the e-commerce platform. And that's the enabler. We all want personalized experiences. And the technology is the lens which is helping company give a personalized experience. Most painful activity for me, and I believe in general, is आपको कोई देखता ही नहीं है. You're treated as generic. When you are treated as, say, I am treated as Tapan, I feel nice, yaar, the world, you know, koi to samajhta hai, yaar.
As they say, when you walk into a room, your whole world walks in with you. So
With
maybe
you.
that's the context here. But taking a point which Tapan mentioned, let me ask the audience: many of you are practitioners in this space, working for big companies. How many of you actually feel that your marketing spends are getting the right kind of response when it comes to consumer retention? It's taking the right steps. Just with a show of hands, how many of you are satisfied with the way, how your company does marketing and how that plays an important role in retaining customers? A show of hands? None. All right. That's a cue for us to expand on that conversation. I noticed in the quiz, one of the questions asked was the matrices for customer retention. But I don't want to make it all about the math. So I'm going to ask a question to all of you, that taking the offbeat road to assess the right way you feel your company is hitting the targets when it comes to customer retention. Any offbeat metric that you'd like to share with us? Hemant, we'll start with you.
I think so. The metrics for customer retention would vary for each of us, completely depending upon the kind of industry verticals or the kind of business we are in. And I think so, today the biggest challenge we are facing is not lack of data, but plenty of data. And most of the people I interact with do not really know what to do with that data. And most of the times, we do not link our appetite for data to the outcomes we are looking at, in terms of it could be linked to financial outcomes, marketing outcomes, etc., etc. So in my view, the first important aspect is to make it simple for yourself by working on more like an 80-20 Pareto principle and being little choosy of trying to ascertain what your core objectives are. And given the fact that we are today living in a digital era where, every month is equivalent to a year, you wouldn't be suffering from FOMO if you just pick up a couple of parameters. So, for example, today I run the largest news and infotainment portal or digital assets and products in Marathi language. Very surprisingly, we are one of the very, very few media houses in the country which operate out of a single state called Maharashtra. But when you look at news, daily news readership from a print point of view, we are the 5th largest media house in the country. And even within Marathi language, we are the largest, catering to 15 million direct customers on the website and all our other digital assets put together, a cumulative community of around 25 to 27 million. To simplify, there are only 3 metrics which I really constantly am very paranoia about. Number 1, what is the frequency of visitation of my user? Number 2, what is he consuming, the number of, in terms of the volume of content consumed every time he visits? Number 3 is total interactions every time he visits. Now, interactions could be in the form of he participating in writing a comment on an article, could be participating in a survey, a contest, or any kind of product reviews, etc. Now, that really matters most to me. When I speak to a lot of other people, they say, hey, time spent is very important. I said, for sure, time spent is important. But if you look at metrics A, which is frequency plus consumption per visit plus interaction per visit, if you add up, automatically your time spent will increase. So these are the 3 core metrics for me as an online news media publisher, which I'm chasing.
All right, that's from the media space. Let's look at the finance space, Gaurav, because at the end of the day, the interaction range, the interaction level is going to be very different. It's going to be sporadic. So what are some of the key performance indicators for you to know that you are actually successful in retaining consumer interest in your brand?
First, a little bit of context setting. You know, I work in the mutual fund business, so the only way you create wealth is by staying invested for a long time. So retention goes hand in hand with, you know, what outcomes you will have as an investor. And the biggest gap between investment returns, you know, if you go, most of the people go to websites and see for a particular fund what are the returns. The biggest gap between investment returns and investor returns is a behavior gap. You know, people get too excited by news, checking out tips, techniques. So one of the key tasks for us is to how to calm you down and actually shift the inertia from your side to my side. I think that's our primary task. Now, having said that, at a category level, another context I would want to give, you know, SIP is a big driver on getting people into the category. 60% of the SIPs which are registered are for less than 1 year duration. The third context is we are a shrinking margin business. You know, the regulator has capped pricing. So it's virtually commoditizing the business. The number of products I can create are fixed. The pricing I can charge is basis volumes, so that is fixed. It is hugely regulated, right? In that context is how I'm operating. So it has to be a volume business, a game of scale. So for us, I think it is, there used to be a point of entry and a point of exit. So the key metric for retention for us is simply put a long-term valued by CAC is my driving metrics on seeing whether the business health is good or not. In conjunction with that, the leading metrics would be something similar to what he was saying, which is engagement plus NPS or a customer sat score, which gives you early signals on, you know, things like onboarding experience, service default on a payment gateway. People, when they come to your platform, they don't understand how the system is stitched up, but that is the expectation of you. And the third piece which we found out, which was important for us from retaining the customer, is a cross-sell within the first 3 to 6 months. So these are 3 things which I would say very important for us.
All right, so we've heard the stories from the media and the finance space. Let's come to the Kutlut example. Here, do you feel that your organization or brand is better placed actually in terms of consumer retention? Because at the end of the day, you're bringing the e-commerce idea, the e-commerce promise to millions of, you know, business minds out there who want to make it big. And you're taking care of it end to end, including logistics, including customer care. So somewhere, take us through that experience and the metric which you find which others are not talking about when it comes to customer retention, Nikki.
Sure. So, few days back, we were actually looking at some numbers, and we saw that year-on-year seller retention rate on our platform is more than 50%. Now, that is something, you know, which is tremendous a matter of pride for us, because that shows that all the sellers who have joined us roughly a year back are still selling products on our platform. And on the seller side, that is the reason the most important metric that we track is how frequently they are uploading fresh products on the platform. because if they don't do that, eventually my buyers would see stale products and then the demand would go down, right? Because we drive demand on our platform. It is very important that sellers continuously update those fresh products, and that is being consumed by the buyers. And since we track the logistics side also, I mean, we also support them in terms of logistics. We also support them. We actually, in a way are an escrow too, where, a buyer sitting in Hyderabad might not know a seller in Delhi, right? On our platform, the buyer gives us that, trust that I'm paying you the money and you are making sure that the seller would receive it once I get the product in my hand, right? And we also take care of the quality, right? So on the buyer side, obviously, we do look at, the reorder percentages, the frequency at which they order. On the seller side, it is primarily around, what is the fresh stock that they keep on uploading on our platform, right? On the ops side, we do look at things like, quicker deliveries, making sure, our return percentages go down, and, the partners which we work with, those partners are actually, making those genuine attempts on the ground. So there is obviously, data that comes from the platform. At the same time, there is a lot of data which comes in from our ops team, where we have created automated systems where they directly upload an Excel sheet that is received, and our system churns out the data in terms of, which buyers, which areas are being serviced better, which are the pin codes which are, working better for us. And basis that, we do those automatic algorithms as to what products to show, which buyers should see what, and things like that.
All right. Tapan, taking into consideration the viewpoints which have been shared by your co-panelists, distill it down for us in terms of the X factor, which is going to be important in terms of converting casual users to regular users. Your thoughts on that?
Sure. Let's see what's happening in the country. In the country, 65% of India is below 35 years of age. Double counting included data is upwards of 750 million people with a smartphone in their hand, and they are consuming data. As well as if you look at the core aspects of connect the GST, the singular taxation system, the payment system, the compute power in hand is amazing for a consumer. And now from an entertainment, and there are many more use cases of life which we are doing on app. So first, a couple of matrices, and of course, as Hemant said very, very rightly, that it's for every business to look at very, very separately that what are the matrices which are driven for them. However, the common aspects of knowing your customer, the micro moments where the customer prefers you to contact them should be known. The channels on which the customer wants you to communicate should be known, or aspects of when they want an intervention, that when they want to talk to you, or their onboarding experience, like what was just mentioned by Gaurav, that the onboarding experience, all these are very, very critical factors. So the customer, if I distill it down in the customer journey map, points of interaction, mediums of interaction, ways of interaction, personalization of interaction, that should be very, very clear for the
All
brand.
right. As we look to kind of wrap up this rapid fire round, let me also see, in terms of hourly active users, how many of them are still engaged with this conversation? How are you finding the themes resonating with you that we have discussed so far? Because we have lots more coming up, but we just want to check your attention span. How many of you find the themes that we are discussing so far resonating with you and what you came here for? A show of hands, if you could. Okay, still lots of scope for progress, but good that at least, we've got at least, I think, 45 to 50% of users or viewers rather showing up their hands and feeling that, well, this is resonating with us. All right, let's expand that conversation now to more detailed answers. And the consumer of today has changed, right? I mean, earlier the game in terms of consumer expectations was give me a good service, give me a good price. But the digitally connected consumer of today expects much, much more, especially since we're talking about omni-channel engagement and so on and so forth, personalized interactions, and of course, connected experiences across channels. So I want to understand from, maybe Gaurav, you could start with this in terms of, how these changing expectations can be turned into value drivers. Gaurav, maybe we could have your thoughts on this, and Nikki, you could follow up. Gaurav, your thoughts on.
So that's a tough one. It's still a journey for us. Let me start off by confessing that, it's been about a decade since we started building our digital assets. Again, by way of context, till about 4 years ago, the category was largely intermediated. Given low literacy levels, low confidence in self to take decisions around money, direct was not such a big thing, right? So it was always coming through your trusted advisor, be it the bank or the feet on street or the intermediary. So a decade ago, we started planting our feet, if I can say that, which is creating channels of access, app, website, and now pretty much we have WhatsApp for commerce, chatbot, contact center, all of them ready and running. But one of the key things which you said we realized is they are not really interconnected to provide that omni-channel. So as we speak, we are re-architecting the entire piece, and why I'm giving this context is, so we are re-architecting by creating a data layer at the bottom. And on top of that, there is a API gateway and a content management system. And the top layer is the UI UX layer where you want to influence and, like I said, transfer the inertia from your side to my side. And it's an ongoing journey for us. Today, like I said, you know, I want to access you whenever, wherever I want. So from that perspective, we have created all channels. The other piece was on capturing all these data signals, you know, Hemant mentioned on channel preferences. So basis your interactions with me either at the contact center or through WhatsApp or on the web logins, I am trying to build a model on saying what is your channel preference. And when I communicate back, predominantly use that either for notifications or sending communications for building that. But some of the other pieces are very simple, which is we figured out a simple thing like SIP is a big way to acquire customers, systematic investment plans. Now, when we do that, we realize some 40% of them were not getting activated because one of the key things is that you have to set up the mutual fund as a biller in your bank. And we did a Pareto pretty much again, like he said. So though there are 80 banks, but we did a Pareto and saw that 6 banks predominantly were the key, customer accounts were concentrated in. And we just created content which was specific to those banks in how do you set up an SIP for a billing, you know, as a biller. And integrated that back into the journey, and we saw this number going up rapidly. You know, it has come to single digits, from a 30% loss to single. So I'm saying micro interventions like this. I think the point is, while it is still a very complicated back end, investing is complicated, the process is complicated, I'm already fearful of this. What customers value is what is called in behavior terms effort heuristic, right? And you've seen most of the fintech players doing that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stages till the time you complete. So all those stages, I think the first task is for us to capture those as signals because that is data which is available. And then how do you create operational transparency from a customer side to say, hey, this is what might be going wrong and we are holding your hand or I am around, to reassure them that they are on the right path. So these are some of the things which we are attempting to do. I don't think, we started off by doing first things first because we are, we are the pioneers in the category. So we are a legacy business which goes 60 years back. So 10 years ago when we started this and the data journey, I'm saying it could take as long as that. We started with a very simple exercise of consolidating our data across, customers acquired over 60 years, which was spread across 3-4 different outsourced operations. The entire processing is outsourced in the mutual fund business. And then did a dedupe exercise. And then we have started building this, correlations. Because we went on this exercise again to see, let's capture data, let it be there on forms, and then realize none of it makes sense from a database. So now we've gone to a concept which we call progressive profiling. And when we interact, when we onboard you, we try and take a little bit of information and then provide value back to you in our next interaction. So if you value that, basis that, you give me another piece of information, which is what I call progressive profiling. And we realize a lot of money decisions happened around, instead of complicating a very data-led or complicated segmentation methodology, we realized that a lot of it is life stage dependent. Once you start working, after you have worked for X number of years, when you start getting into responsibilities, that's when you are also open to have a lot more money conversations, investing conversations. So we built our framework around a life stage based framework.
Because
And
you have
there-
to sync with goals as well, right?
So that's the whole thing. So that's where I'm headed, you know. And then there is again behavioral suggestion. One of the things which we were speaking about retention, you know. So if I draw an analogy, when you're buying products, it's like buying a furniture for your house without having the design of the house in mind. You know, I end up buying furniture. So products are like the furniture for a room, but rooms are really the, you know, aspirations or desires you have. But the larger plan is the, you know, the master plan or the architectural plan of the house. So unless until you have that in place, the rooms manifest themselves in your desires, which are goals, and then you buy products to match it. But most of the selling happens the other way. So now we are building that piece in where we ask you, we've seen, if you tag a goal to your investment, most likely you are able to, you know, we are able to keep you reassured and stick on to your plan rather than churning and saying, oh, there's something which is giving better returns.
It's always an exchange of value in that interaction, right?
It
Whether
is.
it comes to progressive profiling, where at each step the user feels they're getting something back in return from the brand, and that encourages them to maybe share more data so that they get a richer experience back.
Yeah, the last piece I would say is around, like I said, the task was really to reassure and calm down the customer, and a lot of it is being done through the content pieces, how we curate content and serve content basis either your behavior or what you've invested in. So the first part is very essential for us on how you onboard a customer. You know, have they bought the right product when they come in? And we have a set of beliefs around what people should be buying. Like first jobbers, we normally end up recommending a index product. You know, technically that has very low margin. It doesn't make money for a lot of intermediaries, even for manufacturers. But we think it is essential because it simplifies the context of the category. So those are kind of some of the steps.
Take one step back and two steps
Absolutely,
forward.
absolutely.
All right. Nikki, your thoughts on this, you know, in terms of this changing consumer expectations universe and how you can actually turn the conversation on its head and make it a value driver. Your thoughts?
So one of the very important things to understand as business is, you know, customer expectations is always a moving target. You just cannot get away with that, right? Now, one significant thing that happened roughly 2 years back was when pandemic hit us and everybody went into a lockdown, we noticed that, you know, it took some time for people to get used to the new normal. Now, once that happened, the complete outlook of people actually changed a bit. They became a bit more, you know, self-centric, and obviously the way they interacted with all the brands also changed a lot, right? And at that point, we realized it becomes very important for us as a brand to have a centralized team which, you know, would have experts from pretty much all the different departments who can actually talk to consumers and understand what are their patterns outside our product, right? Now, at that time, we realized, right, most of our sellers, most of our buyers were spending too much time on social media, and they were actually engaging a lot using small video stories, or they were actually going through social media feeds and stumbling upon products, ending up buying them. So what we realized is, you know, it is very important that we leverage on these habits. What happens is, we all are, you know, creatures of habits. So if I am spending a lot of time on social media, especially in B2C segment, what happens is people do not judge me with the best in my industry. They judge me with the best in class, right? So they would judge me as versus what they see on Facebook versus what they see on Instagram, even though I'm an e-commerce app, right? So what we did was, you know, when we understood that these are the behavioral patterns and habits that our buyers and sellers have got into, we actually, you know, went back to the drawing board and thought how we can use them, put them on our platform, and then make sure, you know, we increase our revenue, increase our trust with respect to sellers and buyers. So we actually came up with two very unique features on our platform. One of them was video stories for the sellers, where they would continuously upload their products and the stores on our platform as video stories. And then we also created a feed-like system for our buyers, where, you know, rather than just going on a normal e-com platform where you see categories, where you see a home page, we actually created a feed which was basis their location, which was basis their previous search histories, which was also basis, you know, what kind of products they spend more time on. Fast forward to today, what we see in terms of metrics, actually somebody who is a seller who uploads a video story sees 80% more visitors on their store on our platform. And the feed which we have created for the users actually have become the second biggest contributors in our order journey. First, obviously, being the home page, right? So one very important thing which we realized is whenever, you know, such changes come in the market, and they would always come every 5, 7, 10 years, brands who are very nimble on their feet and are able to, you know, adapt swiftly to these changing customer expectations would actually come out stronger. And that is what we actually saw. All the sellers who wanted to showcase their stores, who wanted to showcase their products, they started, you know, creating these video stories, and the video stories that buyers would see, that the conversion to moving those products to cart, viewing those stores in detail actually increased a lot. Right? So it is very important that, you know, whenever we see these changes in probably, you know, things around us, we are very nimble around understanding what our customer expectations are, how our customer is behaving on our platform, obviously at the same time outside. Now, if we can actually create a cross match and put some of those nuances on our platform, automatically, you know, your retention increases, automatically your trust increases, right? So it is very important to have that strategy in place, and then the tactical and operational, you know, aspects to it.
All right, some great use cases coming in, and again, harking back to what I mentioned about the long jump, speed, strength, and agility. That's a perfect use case there. And if it said that picture is worth 1,000 words, I guess a video could be worth thousands of interested users. Hemant, I want to take this conversation forward because we spoke earlier about knowing the user, knowing who the customer is. And in that conversation, the user persona comes into focus. And these days, when we talk about hyper-personalization, the business really needs to have its segmentation in place, needs to have its user persona in place. I want to know from you, how can you get a richer approach when it comes to user personas, where it's not just about understanding the customer, but it's also about creating the right product for that customer. What are your thoughts and experiences on this?
I think so. It starts by trying to understand what is your core offering. Say, for example, if you ask me what is my core offering to the consumer, I offer content. Now, having said that, I offer content. I just don't offer content. I offer content across multiple genres. So it could range from politics, astro, lifestyle, fashion, crime stories, sports, cricket, etc., etc. So you typically offer a range of content, you know, genres from where the consumer comes and picks up the content. That's point number one. Today, the formats, is it a single format? No. Within the same destination, you offer a multi-format content experience to the consumer. So he comes to any site, could be lookmat.com, timesofindia.com, ndtv.com, and he's got to choose from a web article to a video to a photo story to a visual story to a podcast now. These are formats of content, right? I'm assuming there are around close to 75 to 100 people here for the session today. And is it safe for me to assume 100% all of you read news at some point or the other during the course of the day? Yeah?
Your fans? All right. Active media consumers.
Superb, superb. And each one of you have an affinity to a specific brand, and there could be various reasons for that affinity. It could be as a child you read Times of India and you continue to read Times of India, or it could be basis your experience of a particular website which you believe has better quality content or has a better range of content to offer, or or the particular brand sends you notification on time, which helps you being, I would say, a step ahead than your colleagues or your fellow friends in your college or office, etc. So there are multiple moments of truth which help you decide or build certain affinity towards a particular news website or a news app. And also there are many who love reading news through Daily Hunt. primarily because of the reason that you have got multiple brands and you don't have an affinity to a particular brand, but you have got multiple choice and options to choose from. Is it fair? Do you all agree? Secondly, where do you discover the content today? Are you typing in timesofindia.com if you're an ardent reader of Times of India? Are you typing in lokmat.com in the browser if you are a very regular, loyal reader of lokmat.com? No. I would say guys who are regular, guys who are more frequent, guys who are so-called loyal, they would install the app. So I see a lot of people burning down millions of dollars to acquire customers in terms of app downloads. I would never do that. In my view, if you have a great product offering and the guy enjoys your content, he loves the UI UX, the next sequential move from a browser-based experience would be to an app-based experience, given that in India there are not more than 15 apps which people install on their mobile, and largely starting with WhatsApp to Facebook to Google Pay, Paytm, etc., which are more utility-based. Now, what's happening today, there are multiple channels or source mediums from where a user comes on to a news website. It could be Google search, it could be Geo News. There are multiple channels. There are hundreds of such channels. So as a marketer, my first aspect is to understand which are largely the channels from where the user is coming, because it becomes your primary point of talking to the customer or reaching out to him through those prominent channels from where you have 60 to 70% of your audience coming in. Number four is he's coming in consuming content. So you need to kind of map your customer to the kind of content he is consuming. Now, in the absence of any, I would say, customer data platform, tool, etc., do you have any intelligence about your user who's coming on the browser? No, right? The only tool which you use is Google Analytics to figure out what is the frequency of visit, what are the total number of page views which have got consumed, which are the content categories which are performing well, etc., etc. So when you embark on the journey of knowing your customers better, the first thing you have to take it with a pinch of salt that 100% of your users are anonymous users. And what is it that you can know about the anonymous user is how many times is he coming in terms of frequency, what is he consuming in terms of content, types of content, genres of content, etc. What is the source from he's coming, etc., etc. So you could do basic segmentation. So if you ask me what are the two most critical segmentation I would engage into, I would say, hey, I want to create certain brackets saying dormant customer who's not come anytime in the month. He had come once upon a time in his life during the lifetime of the journey. Flyby who comes once, and then I would have bronze, silver, gold, platinum, etc. And then I would also look at the upward, downward trend. This is basis visitation. And the second big segment I would create is that every time he visits the site, what is his consumption? How many pages is he consuming, or how many videos is he consuming, etc., etc. Now, till the time the user is an anonymous user, can you go out of the site and market to him to increase his frequency? No. So what would you do as a marketer? You would say, hey, what are those various interesting things I could do to make him interested to register with my news site? And the moment you register, thanks to the privacy laws, the only data point which a customer parts with is his email ID, right? That's the starting point of your journey. Having created segments and cross segments, so you could say, hey, a gold customer is a guy who comes between 5 to 9 times in a month, and I cross-tab saying, what is his affinity to the most popular categories which he's consuming? And during his visit to the site, I could show him a pop-up saying, hey, dude, I don't know his name, right? He's an anonymous user. So I could say, hey, thanks for coming. I know these are the categories or this particular category you like or this particular politician you like. This is the most latest news around him which you should see. So that is something which really works. It would help you. And as you get more and more people to register, you could get into newsletter, you could integrate with WhatsApp, etc. So that's one part. The other part is, it is very important for you to build up a very strong recommendation widget on your website. So what we have done, we have created a peer-to-peer widget on our website. So if, say, for example, 100 of us fall into a particular segment where each one of us, our primary news which we consume is around Maharashtra, but we also have a strong affinity for Marathi entertainment. We are all bucketed into one. So what it does, the widget, depending upon the similar segment affinity, it would start throwing you pieces of content which you have not read, but some of us have read. And believe you me, I must tell you, we implemented this 3 months back, and today close to 10 to 15 million page views are being contributed by that single widget, which goes on to translate that the user is finding the recommendation, the stories which are recommended or articles or videos recommended by the widget very relevant to his experience. And this is something which you have to then start seeing how you can grow this metrics over a period of time. So build it up slowly. And when we speak about personas, I think so personas have to be collected very systematically because the customer is not willing to part with more and more richer data till the time he finds things relevant. So for example, what we do now, we also have a lot of ground events across the top 35 cities of Maharashtra. So say for example, we had recently the star cast of Ek Villain 2, which traveled to Nagpur. So we ran a program on our website saying, hey, do you want to be the special guest to be invited for this program happening at the Lokmat office? Please share with us your mobile number. So there's a pop-up. Now there's enough reason for him to share because, and we targeted only to people who belong to Nagpur. I could create that segment on the platform. Now things like these become very important because what you're doing by taking data out of him, which enriches your own CRM, you're also giving him a relevant experience. Now, if you collect the data and deliver a bad experience, then that's not going to be right. So it's I would say it's a very exciting journey. You need to be a lot patient. You need to not fall into the trap of problem of plenty. Pick a couple of, outcomes that you want to achieve and start building up on it. So, yeah.
Well, that's a fantastic use case that you've just shared, Hemant. And at the end of the day, it still resonates with what we have mentioned, that you need a pull factor rather than a push factor when it comes to reaching out to customers. So in that context, let me bring you in, Tapan. We've seen a fantastic example being shared. But from a broader context, what are going to be some of the essential ingredients of creating an effective, say, hyper-personalized campaign? We spoke about user personas. Now taking it in a broader context, for all those sitting here, some do's and don'ts of creating an effective hyper-personalized campaign and making sure you're hitting the right spots in terms of creating an intelligent data layer across that entire user journey. What would you say?
Well, there are lots of gems I heard from my fellow panelists. And if you see, there are 3 big categories sitting here: e-commerce, fintech, and media. If you see all the startup ecosystem in India, there are 55,000 startups, 3,500 plus funded startups, and only 102, 103 unicorns, which you saw. And these are the leading categories apart from edutech, etc. Now, most of my fellow panelists have already spoken. For example, the importance of data, the way Hemant said. The importance of geolocation, a campaign only for Nagpur. Media type is 3. Bought media, shared media, earned media. Earned media, there is an event happening on ground. And to be able to cross-pollinate it on the digital spectrum. Fantastic. The kind of aspect from a fintech perspective, Gaurav spoke, the way easing the onboarding journey to calm down the nerves. Because, the SIP, the mutual fund, it's a long-term, it's a compound interest game. And if you can keep them. And from an e-commerce standpoint, the way Nikki talk about that, not just, it's a continuous conversation from a seller, from a buyer, what you're buying, what you're looking at, and fresh stock being available in the pin code you desire being available. Choosing nerve centers that, okay, this is the pin code ordering the most, so this is where you should, focus most. Again, the core crux which comes down to data, analysis, behavior analysis, whether recency, frequency, monetization value of the customer, the way it is. Time of the day, the customer, would like you to reach out to, channel, and then to be able to offer the right thing to the customer. Recommendation, as Hemant talked about. Now, I want to ask you this question. How many of you listen to bhajans in the gym? What if you have a music app which keep recommending to you different types of bhajans? Or let's say I'm just going a little...
Depending on what stage of life
What-
they are in.
or let's say if you're from Tamil Nadu and you are tuned to a certain kind of music, how many would like you to have recommendation on Bangla baul music? Because you're not tuned to that beat. If you consider in India, every state has a beat. Gujarat has Garba, Punjab has Bhangra. There is a beat of Andhra. There is a beat of Tamil Nadu. And if you see, every state has a beat. It's personalization. And the power of recommendation to know your customer and to recommend, ki, yaar, this is what you do. And the amount of new views, what Hemant talked about, generated. Now take that spread onto food tech, onto edu-tech, the lifestyle, and the life cycle of a student, onto e-commerce, of course. It's completely personalization. And the lens here is technology. Because you're not able to talk to a customer one-on-one. At a store, I can talk to the customer, sir, okay, I see your size, you're a big man, don't wear broad checks, wear herringbones. It'll look great on you. But you need to know the customer on the technology platform to be relevant. And that is what is the rubric here.
But somewhere is the magic also being provided by technology? For example, let me ask a question. How many of you are South India speakers, as in you speak a South Indian language? Just raise your hands. All right, I would say a minority. How many of you have seen, say, a movie like Pushpa The Rise or RRR? Right. So that itself is an example how technology is playing a part in kind of giving a solution out of left field. I don't know if the producers were thinking that these movies are going to be a massive success, but here we are, the example has been stated.
And if you see, South Indian cinema has such a broad genre of emotions. While the West is busy thinking about aliens and Avengers and superheroes, our emotions are in broader spectrum. Maybe most of the emotions that even Bollywood is not able to interpret.
So that emotional
The
resonance
emotional,
is what
the
was not
resonance.
got on earlier, and maybe technology provided that outlet, that here's a better way for you to understand a customer. You thought they might not be interested, and as you stated earlier, even if I am, say, a Tamil speaker, I might be interested in baul music, but you just have to give me that experience where I feel, I like this beat, let me hear it a bit more.
If you saw both the videos of Manish, the second video was actually the James Bond experience. What time is your bus? The metro door is open. The world is in celebration because they know this is your birthday. This is the party. And that's where you see, oh, the world is my playground. And that is hyper-personalization.
All right, let's get to the meat of the discussion, which is ROI, return on investment. We can talk for hours about the value of the customer and speaking their language, but at the end of the day, we also need to talk in the context of marketing campaigns, and we are talking about marketing campaigns at scale. In that context, Hemant, how do you ensure that you have higher ROI, whether it's in terms of delivery, optimization, or scheduling, or whatever? From a pure marketing campaign perspective to reach out to customers, how do you ensure high ROI? What's your thought on this?
See, fortunately, I'm currently not grappling with that problem. in terms of ROI because I'm not a very transaction-based platform. But I think so. What we try to drive is efficiency that we try to get out of our marketing spends. And fortunately, when you're in the content business, I fundamentally believe that if you are able to create great piece or pieces of content, then your entire efficiency in terms of when you look at an ROI is far more optimized because the content itself does the marketing. But to kind of take it on a little serious note, in this entire exercise of knowing your customer, when you reach to that stage when you have far richer data about your customer, whether it is in terms of the age group, income group, location, in news, location makes a hell lot of a difference. So if I know exactly where are you coming from and if I'm able to give you relevant news, because please don't be mistaken, the guy staying at Chikmagalur or Akola is more interested in knowing what is happening in his local area with regard to civic issues, politics, education, etc., rather than what is transpiring between Modi and the president of US. Yeah. So we have seen that we have made significant investments year on year in strengthening our hyperlocal offering to our consumers. Now, the moment you start at one level, building up your data-enriched program, you will start seeing that any spends you do on marketing, the objectives could be various, the objective could be varied. You will start seeing that your the cost of marketing or your ROI starts improving. The cost comes down, the ROI goes up. Why? Because you exactly know that who's your customer, where is he staying, which are the channels from which he typically comes and consumes your content. So you can be more, I would say, finite in your approach. Which language does he like? So for example, today there are a lot of websites which are operating in a kind of a 12-language play, 15-language play on the internet. So they could be far more specific with which content to reach the customer. Language plays a very, very important role in your marketing campaigns. I still remember my early days in Lokmat. I had a campaign from Kotak Bank, and it was in English. And since I knew the marketing head, I could take the liberty of calling him up and saying, can I do this campaign for you in Marathi? Because for various reasons, his agency couldn't give him Marathi creatives. So we did that, and we realized that the campaign had a far better, I would say, ROI as it would have compared to the language. The reason why today a lot of marketers are reaching out, doing programmatic, etc., because they're saying, rather than chasing the unit, I want to chase the audience set. And how could I be more precise in sending a specific communication to the right set of audience to get a desired result? And my closing remark is, in this whole midst of technology as an enabler and the plenty of data problem you deal with today, don't miss out on the most important thing, which is to strike the right balance between technology and the emotions of your consumer. Today, I see a lot of miss because we are somewhere in the whole journey lost the whole ploy that at the end of the day, behind the mobile screen or the large screen sits the consumer who's interacting with your brand or your content destination with certain emotions and certain aspiration, the reason why he's come to your place. So I think so that's the most challenging part, and always try to see how you could strike the right balance where your choice of platform could be more data-driven, but your creative could be more emotions-driven.
All right. Motion for growth when you know your customer's emotion. A quick response from
I'd
you,
like to
Nikki?
just add one very important point here. Another thing which we also, notice a lot when we do, marketing campaigns is the path to conversion. So what we see is, when we actually target something for our sellers, if they see a video first, maybe a 30-second video, and then a couple of images, then a video, the conversion is better compared to if we start with an image, then a video, then an image. However, on the buyer side, it is completely different for us. This is basically the data that we see. This is because we feel the buyer is much more evolved because they are also looking at similar advertisements from different e-com platforms. However, the seller acquisition for us is a bit different compared to what other platforms do, right? So a buyer would see a catalog on Instagram and get attracted and come on the platform. However, for a seller, the path to acquisition is very different. Now, exactly in the same way, we also create paths to retention on our platform, whether we want the seller to do this first or we want the buyer to do this first, right? So the same concept can be actually very well applied to retention, and then automatically the results start to kick in. However, it will take some time for those models to mature, even on your system of retention.
All right. Gaurav, to bring you in the conversation and also have that best practices kind of focus, how do you maximize customer lifetime value and say determine what actions are optimal at each life cycle stage? For example, when you're running say loyalty programs or trying to re-engage with users or trying to identify your best brand advocates, some best practices that you could share.
Well, I would say it's different strokes for different folks to start off with. So I don't want to,
Not a broad,
give a
but maybe from your
prescriptive one.
use
Yeah, for us, first of all, Majboori ka naam Mahatma Gandhi. So margins are shrinking. We don't get budgetary approvals. So the first task is to cut out the noise. Don't get caught in drawing room conversation, social media, anything else, right? We focused hugely on search engine optimization. And today, about 55-60% of our traffic is because of our, outcomes on SEO and even sales. So I'm saying just from a path kind of a perspective, the data journey I already said, we started 8-10 years ago. Today, what we're trying to do is you have data of records, which is your first party data. When you invest, you give certain information. Then there's data of transaction. And transaction could be service request, change of address. These are all triggers in a lifetime to initiate a campaign or to sense that something is happening in the customer's life. But the third piece which was missing and for which you required a lot more considered setup is data of interaction, which captures all the behavioral segments across moment of truth, which I think Hemant mentioned, and then trying to figure out how do you combine these two to create some kind of a relevant piece for the customer? And that has been the second, I would say, journey. So both on the anonymous as well as for the logged in customers, what we've identified or what we started doing is created a unique ID. We called it a golden passport kind of a ID in our system. So we know most of the times, even on anonymous customers visiting, today you can create an ID basis, device, and since 85-90% of the traffic is mobile driven, you can do that. And basis this, we try and then curate, segments on content and whatever cohorts basis behavior. It could be a simple RFM model or, like I said, a life stage based model if we have that information for us. The language piece, I think, again, for us has been to keep it simple because finance anyway is fairly complicated and you get into vernacular and bounded by regulations, it can become Greek and Latin. So how to get that tonality right is still a challenge. Content for us is therefore a work in progress and we are constantly looking for ecosystem partners on how to do bite-sized contents, still be able to provide relevance, get the person to understand in 60 or 90 seconds on Reels or Instagram. That's a challenge still. The last piece I would say is on looking at these micro interventions, like I said, so every signal which you are getting, how do you convert it back into an opportunity to do, learn, do? So there is not a point in place where I said, okay, I'm there and we've kind of iterated and done all that we could do. So use those opportunities like I gave you on SIP or any other thing, that to constantly make that change because, like Nikki mentioned that the expectation on the category is what I am experiencing from different categories. It might not be true for me. So if speed or responsiveness is an outcome I want, I have to keep that as a base level, hygiene criteria.
But what
It
about
is-
changing consumer habit? You mentioned the SIP example, right?
no.
That involved a lot of change in consumer thinking. So how
So-
did you see data
so-
and analytics
no,
helping
so
you?
there, that's what I'm saying. So there, changing behavior is a very tough task, but to create new behavior, you can do that, influence that by, again, using these signals. So if I know the customer is getting engaged, I give the next best kind of a content, I keep these metrics in mind, I can create behavior where I tend to reward. So in other parlance, you can call it gamification, but I can reward the customer, though it is regulatory not allowed. So I will not, I'm erring on the wrong side, but reward behaviorally to say, reassure or tell the customer, reassure the customer that you are on the right path. And do that in a manner which handholds and say, continue this journey. I think the wow moment happens when you give a little time in the category and you see your statement of account and then you say, oh, something is happening to my money. That's the point you really activate the customer to take him forward on the journey.
All right. Taking into consideration the wow moment that you mentioned, Tapan, when we talk about the wow moment, right, as we are scaling up, it's also about successful marketing automations. I want to know from you, what separates marketing automation of successful businesses versus, say, the rest of the pack? Your view on this?
Couple of points which matter is we all have micro moments of wow. There are a couple of ting, buzz, notifications which we check and couple of we don't check. There would be, possibly most of you would not have all your SMSs read. There would be so many offers, 200 points in your this, go and buy something which you don't use that promo. One of the very important aspects is whether the brand is able to align to the wow moment which you value, which you need. And technology to be able to create hyper-personalization at scale. Now, the successful folks, they always communicate in a very hyper-personalization, but their method is at scale. There are at any given point of time, tens of millions of people accessing and opening their app. So, by knowing the consumer, by creating relevant aspects, relevant offers, promotions, loyalty aspects, buying patterns, and not disturbing the customer too much. We can give anything to anybody, but we don't have time to give it to anybody. आप मुझसे कुछ भी ले लो, मुझसे time मत मांगो, attention span मत मांगो. If you can give me what I need the most of my kind of recommendation, if you know me, and if a brand can execute it using technology at scale, that's a very, very successful aspect.
And how should the brand change itself organizationally to do that? So that it's more strategic versus tactical when it comes to customer engagement, because the brand also wants to be more proactive, let's say, versus reactive to customer needs. What would you say to that?
I would say is that by using technologies to be able to analyze all this data, to be able to ingest all this data, analyze it on time, be in context at the time, with the right moment, with the right offers, for the right kind of person. That is what the brand needs to do. It is not, in the current world, digital is not selling something to you. Whenever you're checking an app, you are having a conversation with the brand. And the brand to be able to hold that conversation back with the customer, that's very, very important. It's about conversation. It's not about transaction. It's about conversation.
All right. Gaurav, your thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add to what he's saying. I missed out on this. I think it's very important from a technology perspective to realize the difference between robotic strength and human strength. This whole thing on what he was saying on connections and emotions, you end up automating this piece a bit too much and people get lost in trying to solve for the technology. So it's rarely technology which disrupts, but it's how people adopt technology. And a quick example of this is we started launching chatbots, WhatsApp, integrated WhatsApp for commerce, everything else. And then we realized the AI and the machine learning piece takes some time before you start discovering the intent. And so a very small rule which we built in was the minute we saw that the person was getting into a loop, we quickly diverted it to a live agent to solve for the customer. And we've looked back at data, every customer problem resolved gives us at least 10x outcomes on ROI instead of a cold call. a customer complaint handled well or a situation handled well is giving us massive cross-selling and upselling opportunities.
All right, we've got a signal coming up here right now that we are almost at the end of our conversation. So
I just want to add something to
Sure,
Gaurav.
sure,
Sorry
sure,
for.
Tapan. Go ahead.
I believe the way the technology can, like in his case, could assist humans. That through a model they could interpret that, okay, this is the time of a human intervention. To be able to answer or deflect questions which were run of the mill and where time was in essence. But when the human interaction and to be able to assist human being, for example, marketeer is one person. Now you expect a marketeer to handle 10 million consumers at the same time. How is it humanly possible unless assisted by technology?
All right, Nikki?
I think one very important thing whenever we build technology or whenever we talk about, understanding cohorts, automatically assigning user bases, their behaviors to different cohorts, and then making this configurable technology to, serve them differently. One of the most important factors which most of the people tend to miss here is how do we create that feedback loop in place which again feeds the entire information back to the system, and then the system auto-learns and then solves the problem of the next customers better, right? So that feedback loop is very important whenever you talk about, doing this configurable tech, doing this, user cohort, auto-segmentation, etc., etc.
All right, Hemant, the last comment from you. The roadmap to improve retention. What would you say as some, words to consider, especially considering, acquisition versus retention. Acquisition is 25 times more expensive than retention. So any words of advice to all the folks who are here in terms of having a roadmap to improve retention? What would you say?
So I would say the first point number one is set your goals very, very clear, which should be very inward, right? You should be very, very clear about what your strengths and weaknesses are as a business in terms of your product offering, etc. And what is it that you are expecting as an outcome before you start the journey. Point number two, I believe it is extremely important when it comes to making the right choice as far as any kind of tech stack or platform is concerned. Please don't make the mistake of building it yourself because the CTO in every organization would want to build it themselves. Please choose the best platform because it would be easy for you to, the time to go, the time to hit is much faster. Number three is please set up a dedicated team of people who are able to interpret the data well. Now, what do I mean by it? When I joined advertising as a young boy, I learned that some of the kick-ass advertising in this world is based on great consumer insights. I think so, nothing has changed much. The fundamental principle has remained the same. But when I met the CEO of Amazon India and I asked him, how do you do such great advertising? He said, it's simple. Some of the kick-ass advertising Amazon does is based on great data insights, right? So while the fundamental principle has remained the same, it is largely a shift from focus group studies, FGDs, which used to happen in person on ground, to huge amount of data insights which you are able to draw out today. Don't suffer from the fear of missing out because your friends, your neighbors would tell you that what large amount of data I'm working with. So don't worry about that because 90% of the people fail to interpret the data right, have a preset action standards to deal with certain interpretation, have an execution plan and let it flow back or loop back into a feedback mechanism to see if there are 5 things which you interpreted and there was an action standard you decided and you executed. Has it really helped you move the metrics up? So keep it simple and stupid. And your choice of platform partner is extremely important because the guy has to stay with you for a long time. And please don't recreate something which is already created in the market.
How's that for a frank and unfiltered conversation, ladies and gentlemen? Give them all a loud round of applause. It's been fascinating to see this journey pan out, the past, the present, and the future of creating a hyper-personalized experience. And from an allegory perspective, if I had to take a, mention a song, birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. And that's the essence of any brand's successful relationship with the customer. Do they make their customers feel good? On that note, that's a wrap for our conversation, and you've been a lovely audience. Give yourself a loud round of applause. Thank you so much.